When you're writing a resume, you have to remember that it also functions as a business card. So if you don't include your contact information, how are they going to reach you? Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Brittany Hayles, and this is Hayles Consulting, a business dedicated to helping you gain confidence and clarity in your career. In today's video, we are talking about resume mistakes, and some of the most common mistakes that I constantly see on resumes is that first, people forget that it is a document to show how impressive you are. So people forget to include those most impressive metrics and attributes of themselves. And secondly, people totally forget that yes, you're writing your resume, but you're not writing it for you to read it, you're writing it for someone else to read it. So including abbreviations or acronyms or information that may not be so obvious to the reader is not impactful. You want to be as detailed as possible and leave out those really specific terminologies and words that may mean nothing to the reader. So in order to stand out to hiring managers, recruiters, or whoever's reading your resume, I'm going to be walking you through 5 things you absolutely need to avoid with your resume. Before we even get started here, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. Also, do not forget to follow Hayles Consulting on Instagram for more career, interview, and resume tips. Let's get started. So the first thing you absolutely want to avoid with the resume is using the same exact resume for every application. In my YouTube video of how to transition into a new career, I talk about the fact that you need to update your resume every single time you apply to a new job. Now, I will be the first one to tell you, you do not need to make an entirely new resume for every single job application. However, you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you do not go in and update your resume for each job application. And what I mean by that is before you apply to a position, look on the job description, try to find those keywords, technical skills, soft skills, like what exactly is it that they're looking for? Take 5 or 6 of those keywords and plop them into your resume. And if they're already there, just figure out how to trump them up even more. But the mistake that people make is that an analytical position at one company is not the same exact thing at another company. So you want to make sure that your resume is the most relevant for that job application. I'm a firm believer in that theory that the first 50% of your resume is the most important. So basically, if you fold your resume in half, whatever's above that first fold needs to be the most relevant to the job description. And the reason why people talk about this so often is because people's attention span is so short, especially if you're applying to a really major company that's getting thousands of applications. You want to make sure that the information they're reading is the most relevant. One of the biggest things I highlight to my clients and people when I'm reviewing their resumes is when you go to a job application, whatever the first duty is on that job application that they're looking for you to complete, that is the most important thing that they want from a candidate. So make sure that first bullet point on their job application is present somewhere in the first half of your resume. That's just gonna make your resume stand out automatically. So the second mistake that I see on most resumes is including unrelated work experience. Now, what I mean by unrelated work experience is that whatever experience is on your resume has absolutely nothing to do with the experience that's being required in the job application. There are so many roles out there where the 2 roles are not necessarily the same thing or even close to being the same thing, but you can still highlight transferable skills. So when I was a sourcer at Google, I was recruiting and finding talent and helping hire interns for Google. And then right after that, I transitioned to the role that I'm in right now as an administrative business partner at Google, supporting directors and VPs at Google. Although these 2 jobs aren't directly related, they do have transferable skills of working in fast-paced environments or managing relationships with people, like a lot of transferable skills. But let's say I was applying to an analyst role and on my resume, I was talking about being a babysitter. Those 2 don't really align. It's gonna be really hard to show the transferable skills there. So the best way to do that, I'm actually gonna provide you with an example. So let's say you're applying to a role in supply chain, to be a supply chain manager, but you have a ton of retail experience on your resume. Obviously, retail sales and supply chain are not directly correlated at all, but there are some transferable skills there. But in your retail experience, instead of talking about how you rung up customers or customer service skills, Talk more from the inventory management section. Speak more from the inventory management duties or the product management duties. Talk more about how in your retail experience you had to manage the demand and supply of specific products or elements within that business. That's how you connect two roles that aren't necessarily related but have transferable skills. Now, if you're applying to be a supply chain manager and you have a lot of babysitting experience, I would just leave that off because they don't have anything to do with each other. And I'm pretty sure you can find a ton more experience that is related. Hold off on the unrelated experience on your resume because it just makes no sense to include it and it doesn't show impact. So the third thing you absolutely want to avoid on your resume is including outdated or incomplete contact information. When I was a sourcer at Google, I would see a resume that was perfect for the position, perfect. And then I would go to email the person and their email would bounce back to me. And I would just be like, we were rooting for you. What happened? Why'd you let us down? And this is what happens a lot. People forget that your resume also functions as a business card. So if you don't include the right contact information or outdated contact information, how are we supposed to contact you? And that is the most frustrating thing for a recruiter or a hiring manager, especially when they absolutely loved your application or resume. And the thing is, yes, they could absolutely find you on LinkedIn or find you on any sort of online presence, but the reality is that you can't leave this up to chance that they're gonna have the time to go and do that. Again, if you're applying to a large company, sometimes they're receiving thousands of applications. So they don't have time to fill in the blanks that you didn't fill in for them. So make sure that your contact information is complete. And when I say complete, include your phone number that's up to date and the phone is working. Include your email that's up to date and you check frequently. And when it comes to email addresses, make sure it's professional. First and last name, last and first name, first, middle, last. Please don't do things with like a ton of numbers or emails that have nothing to do with your name. And another major thing that people forget, don't forget to include your LinkedIn profile on your resume. And if you have a personal website or a portfolio that you can link to, that's even better. Because most people are very visual and they love the idea of seeing what you've done and what you put out into the world in a visual concept. So before you send out your resume and apply online to a position, make sure that the email, the phone number, the LinkedIn, the website, every single means of contact information that you put on your resume is up to date. So the fourth thing you absolutely want to avoid on your resume is including grammatical errors. So before you submit your application, before you send your resume over to a recruiter, read it, and then read it again, and then read it again. Like, I can't stress that enough. And if you can have someone else read it, that's even better, because sometimes we can't even spot out our own errors because we're so used to reading our own materials. Grammatical errors ruin your credibility. And I don't know about you, but my street cred is very important to me, so make sure you read it. The three most common grammatical errors that I see on resumes is the wrong usage of their, the wrong usage of your, and also sometimes on resumes, people will use periods in some sections of their resume and not use it in others. So just make sure that you're being really consistent with how you use those period punctuations on your resume. And there are so many tools that can help you with grammatical errors. Before I submit anything, I use a Grammarly tool, which is like this little plugin that you can use and install on your Google Chrome. By the way, this is not sponsored by Grammarly, but I swear by that tool. It lets you know if you're using the wrong punctuation or if you can use better words to describe what you want to say. Like, it's amazing. And then besides Grammarly, there are so many ways that you can check punctuation. So the fifth thing that you absolutely want to avoid on your resume is overlooking project or leadership experience. The benefit of including projects on your resume is that it allows you to show more skills that you didn't necessarily get to flex in your work experience. So again, if you're applying to be a supply chain manager and you worked on a project with a small business to help them track inventory or help them track product management, that's the perfect project to add on your resume, because it shows that maybe you didn't have that experience before in a previous role, but you did it in a project. Projects really allow you to fill in the gaps of those skills and make sure that all 5 or 6 of those keywords that you need to highlight from the job application are present on your resume. And the same exact thing goes for leadership experience. There are skills that we flex in our leadership positions that we don't necessarily get to flex at work. So if you're a mentor outside of work and you work at the Boys and Girls Club of America, or you've done other leadership sorts of things, it's so important to include those because it lets people know, it lets a recruiter know, it lets a hiring manager know that you have leadership abilities to bring to the table. When companies are hiring, they're not looking for somebody to stay in the same position forever. They want to see you grow. They want to promote you, hopefully, or else you shouldn't even be applying to that company. But the reality is they want to see that you are going to grow into your role and that you're going to expand your role. And the only way for them to see that is to see that you have leadership experience. So don't be afraid to add those project sections and those leadership sections to your resume. It adds color, it provides a holistic view of you, and it lets people know that you have so much more than just your work experience to bring to the table. So remember that unless you know a recruiter or a hiring manager personally, they don't know you. So it's so important that you present the best version, the most impressive version, and the most holistic version of yourself on your resume. So do not forget to include those leadership and project positions, and make sure that every single time you apply to a position or you're getting ready to apply to a position, align the job description with your resume. Throw those 5 or 6 keywords in and make sure that you're presenting that not only are you the best, but you're the best based on the fact that what they're asking for, you have experience with it. As I said earlier in this video, I am a career coach, and Hayles Consulting is a business dedicated to helping people gain clarity in their career. So if you've written your resume and you still want to get a second pair of eyes to look at it, I would be happy to review your resume for you. You can go ahead and click the link in the description box down below for a resume review, or you can email me at info@haylesconsulting.com to learn how to set up some one-on-one time. So comment down below, what are some of the mistakes that you've made with your resume? I know I've made every single mistake that I talked about in this video, so I'd love to hear from you. And if you also just have resume tips that you know everyone else would benefit from, do not hesitate to comment them down below. Do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to follow Hayles Consulting on Instagram. Like this video, turn on that notification bell so you can be notified every single time I post a new video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.